Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, June 11, 2012. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Council members Galloway.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Piana. Here. Lennon. Here. Mayor Coulter.
Here, yes, thank you. We have a quorum. In fact, we have a full house tonight. Next order of business would be the approval of the agenda. Any changes or additions, deletions to the agenda this evening?
Move to accept the agenda. Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Lennon. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Council members Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Piana. Yes. Lennon.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Next order of business would be presentations. We have two presentations this evening. The first from the Ferndale Public Schools, and I see Stephanie Hall in attendance this evening. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
You can lower that.
This is the last week of school, and we are gearing up for our end-of-the-year staff recognition on Friday, and I want to invite all of you next week to a community-wide retirement celebration for Herb Ivory, principal of Ferndale High School. It is going to be Wednesday, June 20th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the main entrance of Ferndale High School. There are going to be some special presentations and some old faces, and I hope that you'll be able to come. So it's going to be a big night. And it's free to everyone. Everyone's welcome. I have a couple of things to tell you about the graduates this year. We have 3 high schools, Ferndale High School, University High School, and our alternative ed, and just finished our 3 weeks of graduations with 525 graduates total from all our schools. Ferndale High School in particular had the highest number of scholarship dollars ever raised by our students, over $3 million in scholarships. A couple of standouts, and one in particular is a Ferndale resident, Molly Breen Bondi, earned over $430,000 in scholarships. She's going to the University of Michigan to study pre-med and biology.
So I need every dime of that.
Exactly. So I just wanted to point out that one to you. Our girls' varsity soccer team made it the farthest they ever have. They won their first ever league championship, followed by their first ever district championship. And one of their players, who's also a Ferndale resident, Lexi Brisson-Fast, scored 107 career goals, which is more than any boy or girl has ever done in our district. She's going to Saginaw Valley on a full ride athletic scholarship. Just wanted to remind you that the 4Kids Golf Classic outing is on Monday, June 25th. Again, if you're not able to golf and join us, you could sponsor a student golfer or a hole, and the info is on our website. The final thing that I want to point out to you is that our board at the last meeting approved going forward on requesting proposals for a strategic planning process. That strategic plan is available through me at our office, and it'll be on our website tomorrow. We've sent them out to organizations that do that kind of work, but we also want to spread the word if you know somebody that might be interested. And that is the end of what I have for tonight.
Very good. And congratulations
Hope to see
to
you
all the graduates and scholarship recipients. Thanks.
Thanks
for being here. Our next presentation is a presentation by DTE Energy. Mike Palchesko, the regional rep, is here with us, and I know you have a colleague as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Coulter, and good evening, members of the City Council and City Manager McGrath. I'm joined tonight by Mr. Ron Gherkin, our supervising engineer, who was with me the last time we were here, last fall. And we provided you with an update on some issues, answered your questions. We're here tonight to, again, provide you an update, following up on the meeting we had with you last time. But I wanted to point out that in January of this year, Ron and I and a couple others from DTE participated in a meeting with City Manager McGrath and her counterparts from Southeast Oakland County, where we gave sort of a regional update to all the city managers. So what we're doing tonight is we wanted to use this presentation as a template, highlighting the pieces that apply to Ferndale. and use that as our backdrop. There is one key point I want to mention, and that is the last time we were here, we talked about how we were looking for property for a new substation in the community, which is going to provide us with some additional capacity, but also some additional flexibility if we run into issues or some kind of situations. We'd have extra abilities to do some transferring of circuits and so on. So that process has been moving forward. We have identified a piece of property. I'm not able to quite yet divulge it because there's still negotiations going on in that regard. But one of our next steps, once we do finalize with the owner on the property, I'll be coming into City Hall here and working with Mr. Delacourt along with April on the approval process, how to move forward on that. So that is something that will be coming up later this year.
Is the timeline for getting that new substation online before Myers comes online?
I'll have to defer to Ron if...
Okay, significantly after? Would that be significantly after, and how would the interplay of, the new demand at 8 Mile and Woodward?
Well, yeah. How about this? If I could have Ron come to the podium, he'll give the presentation, and he has a page on. Yeah, okay, during the presentation, he has a page that would help in that regard. So I'm going to go ahead and step aside at this point, and I'll let Ron.
I'm sure there's no answer.
To answer your, good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm getting kind of used to being here. I think it's under a better situation than we had before. I know the reliability of Ferndale and the area has been much better. It hasn't been perfect, but we haven't lost entire substations. And the times that we have had outages, they've been relatively quickly fixed. So at least that's an improvement over what we had last summer. As for your question about Myers, we saw where they got the go-ahead and they are going to start constructing. We haven't really decided what substation to serve it out of right now. We have two alternatives. One of them would be a substation in Detroit. It ultimately will come out of the new substation that we're planning on building. We want to monitor the loading at this time, I believe it would be out of Hazel Park substation rather than Ferndale. But we want to make certain that we don't lower reliability when we provide for service to this customer. I'm going to have to get used to this. I think I turned it off. There, turned it on. Which way would go forward? There you go. Okay. As Mike was saying, we gave this presentation at the end of January. What I have done today is outline the work in Ferndale, but I'll go through just what we were doing. It's sort of a health check. It shows how our Detroit Edison system is health-wise and able to maintain reliability and also serve new load growth in the southeast Oakland County area. Just as a summary of how electricity is generated and distributed to customers, I may have run across this item last discussion, but for general information, we have our power plants that generate the electricity. They are located generally along the rivers where there's water available for cooling, and also transportation of fuel in the Great Lakes from a lot of places in western Nevada, western Nevada goes into Duluth and then freighted down here from Duluth to Monroe generally. The power is generated at 13,000 volts. It's raised to a transmission voltage of 120 to 345 kV. And the reason for that is you can transmit a lot of power from the power plants. And what was necessary after you transmitted it, we got stations which transmit that power or transform the power from a high voltage to a lower voltage for our subtransmission. The subtransmission then is feeding various substations. Ferndale and Hazel Park would be 2. And the voltage at those locations is stepped down from 24 kV, 24,000 volts down to 4,800 volts presently. And those distribution circuits out of the substations then go to transformers in customers' rear lots or side lots, and there's transformers that transform it down to 120, 240 volts. And that's the voltage that goes into each individual home. As for a guide of how our distribution system works, we have reliability built into our normal substations. We usually have 2 or 3 transformers in a substation, and if we lose the feed or the transformer of one, it normally can throw over automatically to the adjacent feed, so you don't lose any of the individual circuits. We ran into a problem last summer where we had problems with one transformer at Ferndale, and it was out of service, and we had to interrupt the other transformer, so that's why we had to lose the entire substation, which included approximately 8 circuits, and that fed mostly the city of Ferndale. We don't foresee that happening this summer, primarily because we've made changes last year to monitor and tree trim and to do pole top maintenance to make certain there wasn't something out there that was imminently going to fail. At times we've been asked by customers, well, my power is always out and the customer across the street isn't. And I'm just telling you that this Ferndale substation has about 8 distribution circuits. And the red one would be a type of one circuit, and the blue would be another circuit. So if you have problems on the red or the blue area can be out and the red area will be in, and vice versa. And it's only the customer generally just recognizes it when they're out of power. However, it generally is averages out where all the customers are out similar times. It's just the time that you're out is the time that you're saying, well, the customer across the street always has power. But that's essentially why certain areas will have power and you don't, just because you're on a different distribution circuit. The areas that feed Ferndale are 4 substations. They are the ones outlined in yellow. This is available capacity for new growth for the substations in southeast Oakland County. And the ones feeding Ferndale are Ferndale, Hazel Park, Lincoln, and Woodside. Lincoln just has 1 circuit and Woodside has part of one. But if you look at the normal capability of the third column from the right shows the percent of loading of the substation capability. So under normal conditions, Ferndale has 81%, Hazel Park 92%, Lincoln 81%, and Woodside 42%. So nothing at those 4 substations is overloaded under normal conditions. The one problem where we have a situation that if we have the last column, if we lose one transformer, we get into a situation where we could not have the ability to serve approximately 6 MVA or 2 circuits out of Ferndale. However, under normal circumstances, we would have load shedding, where for a short period of time, we would interrupt one circuit for approximately 4 hours, then transfer it over to the other one until we could make jumpering available to restore service, or when the load went down in the high peak areas in the summer. Proposed countermeasures, substations over firm. The 2012 contingency plans, we have contacted through April a person where we were looking at where we put in substations, portable generators last summer. And essentially what we would do if we ran into the situation where we needed a portable substation or generator, we would use the same site. One of the changes that we made with the generator is right now the generator is good to serve 1 circuit, and what we did before is when we came here, it didn't have the ability, or it didn't have the equipment with it to install it in order to be able to serve the, and what we did was that there's a truck that goes with the generator now, so that we have all the material in order that once the generator gets there, we can put this generator online in approximately 4 hours. Long-term plan, Ferndale at 146% and Hazel Park at 116. We are going to purchase property for a new substation. We have heard from the ITC company that they can provide the transmission feed into the substation on the property that we have located, and they can fit it on the property that's available. So the next step, as Mike was saying, that we have to work with the city to see what permitting and is required to obtain the rights to build a new substation.
Wait, could I just ask a quick question about that? Could you go back, if that's possible? Purchase the property for the substation, but then the construction is not dependent on purchasing the property, it's dependent on...
Construction usually takes, construction is probably 1.5 to 2 years.
After you purchase the property?
After the purchase, because we need to order the transformers, and that's approximately 52 to 54 weeks to order the major equipment. And then use quite a bit of overhead line work and underground work associated with that. So I think probably the closest that we would be able to get it in now would be at the end of 2014 probably. But we feel that with the changes that we made from the situation that we had last summer, that if we don't have a double contingency, we should be able to serve all the load for the next 2 years without interrupting.
Just to follow up on the mayor's question, this construct a new substation when equipment exceeds day-to-day rating, does that suggest that we have to wait until that 92 hits 101 on the regular load for that substation before you'll start? Or are we going to order the equipment as soon as we get the land, or is it already ordered, or, you know?
It's not already ordered, but as we were stating before, in order to serve the new growth, we need to look at putting in the new facilities to serve the Gateway Shopping Center, or whatever they call it down for the old State Fairgrounds. And Myers coming in is going to, was it Myers? Yeah, is going to promote that, because they usually run approximately 700-800 kVA, which is about a third of a distribution circuit. So we still have capacity. It's just that with Myers coming in, there will probably be other developments in that to support that growth.
So is our 2-year timeline running now? Are we less than 2 years away from a new substation, or are we going to go through more than 2 summers before we have that new substation online?
It will probably be the end of 2014. It would be rushing it to get to 2013, because we would have to almost have had the it's going to take at least 12 months in order to get the equipment, and then you have an installation period, so it probably takes about 1.5 to 2 years to construct it.
Okay. Thanks.
Just as information on the weather we had last summer, it supports the fact that we had an extremely hot summer. It may be warmer this year. However, on an average basis, we had 150 days of weather, and the yellow was the, I'm not certain what the yellow was. I thought those were
Days with temperatures above 90.
Oh, we had, it was extremely warm last summer, and it looks like we can still get very warm this summer too, but presently we haven't had any problem serving the load that has been generated with the air conditioning. But it did show that last summer was very abnormally warm, and that accounted for the great increase in load on the substation, and ultimately causing the circuit, the 2 feeds to the transformers at Ferndale to fail, and then we had to shut them down in order to have repairs made. And in reliability statistics, this is indicating approximately, overall, I think our system average is about what we have on an average for the Ferndale area. You can look at this, but it's not significantly higher or lower. I think last summer it's probably going to be a lot higher because of the fact that we had the loss of the substation. And that is a rare occurrence. Last year we had more, I think we lost 4 substations, and that's I only remember one happening before in the time that I've worked here. So it was a very unusual summer. Service reliability, City of Ferndale, all Ferndale's, what did we do? All Ferndale substation circuits were patrolled last fall. We're told to find and repair defective equipment. This work was completed last fall. DTE future actions, purchase the property for a new substation east of Woodward, south of 9 Mile in 2012. We are proceeding with that and probably will be getting the property purchased by the end of the year. And that's essentially where we stand right now on the state of the load in the city of Ferndale. If there's anyone in the audience that have experienced abnormal conditions, we would like to have their name just so that we could review it again. Fortunately, we can't guarantee service all the time, but we can hope that we get a lot better service than we did last year. And we've been working with that objective in mind.
And I would add that if you're an audience member at home, maybe send an email to our city manager, April McGrath, and she can forward it on to the folks at DTE.
That's what we have.
Next question.
Yeah, of course. Question to council, please.
In your long-term plan that you rolled out last summer, you hit on most of the points, but you also included in your recommendations a fusing study and identify opportunities to minimize impact of outages around that fusing study. Was that completed as well?
Yes, it was. Okay. And we have installed fuses at locations where what that does is if I could go, let's see. This circuit, if there's areas where on the red circuit, if there were parts that we could put fuses in some of the laterals that are fed off of the main backbone. The main backbone would be the east-west thick line north of Eaton Road. And if we could put fuses in some of those laterals, if a fault occurred in those laterals, then the fuse would blow rather than the whole circuit. So we've analyzed that and installed fuses where we could.
Thank you. So we're reasonably confident of the equipment and the substations that exist today. Is that what you're saying?
Very. And that's the other thing. We also went in the substation and made certain that all the preventive maintenance and requirements were also done. Tree trimming was done in the last couple of years, and then the pole top maintenance where we checked the circuit. There was quite a windstorm last year, too, besides the other outage. And after that windstorm, we did the patrol, and we found a lot of things that still needed to be cleaned up after that. So I have confidence that the circuits are in good shape and capable of serving the city. The only thing that we can't guarantee is we have a lot of dead ash trees. We try to trim them if they're in our easement, but our easement's only 12 feet wide. I would support, and I wish the city could support, if they've got a tree near an overhead line, that the customer should try to get it removed. That causes a lot of problems if it falls, and it could fall on homes and other things besides our lines.
No, she's right there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions to council? Well, I appreciate it. You've worked a lot with April and our administration over the last year, and I know I appreciate the open communication. I appreciate you both being here again tonight, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, our next order of business would be a public hearing, and I'll modify this just a little. Someone from the public actually made a suggestion that I thought was reasonable. I think I see her in the audience, as a matter of fact, which is I'll ask the clerk to introduce this item and explain it first, and then open it up for public hearing so that you know what it is that you're commenting on. So, Madam Clerk, would you introduce the item first before I ask for the public's comment?
Certainly. This is a request from Black Friday LLC, doing business as Drake's Ferndale. They're applying for a new Class C license issued under the redevelopment liquor license statute, and this would be located at 241 West 9 Mile. I would ask if there's anyone here from the applicant, representing the applicant. What's that?
Nope. Okay, good.
I just want to say, we have heard that they may be withdrawing their application, that they may not be moving forward with this, but I have not heard directly from the applicant or their attorney. Since we noticed this public hearing, I would suggest we go ahead and hold the public hearing, and then we can hold on to our recommendation until we know what the applicant plans to do.
Oh, good.
Very good. So, having introduced that item, I will now open a public hearing for the redevelopment liquor license of Black Friday LLC, doing business as Drake's Friday, Drake's Ferndale, excuse me. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address it?
Yes. I didn't have time to look it up, although I did read what was attached to the agenda. What is a redevelopment liquor license supposed to be for?
Do you want to answer it, or who wants to take that?
Dan, could you
Dan, you
handle
want
that
to
one?
explain the legal definition
A
of that?
redevelopment, certainly, Your Honor. A redevelopment license would be a liquor license which is authorized by statute above and beyond the quota licenses for on-premise establishments that are set by the population amount for the particular city. And the statute provides certain criteria that such an applicant needs to meet with respect to both the redevelopment license as it relates to location, as it relates to improvements, and it is still also subject to council approval. And because of that, it is also subject to the evaluation by the council of the resolution criteria that's set forth and approved by council previously as it relates to factors that council considers in order to decide whether it wishes to approve or deny such an applicant.
Can I provide some context to that, maybe?
Sure.
Please.
Redevelopment liquor license were put in place to help revitalization of downtown areas. And it's kind of the workaround based off of some of our antiquated liquor laws, which cities can sell their liquor license to other cities, and some cities have done that. And so it was put in place so that cities can help with revitalization efforts if you had a restricted number of liquor license. So this is put in by the state to work around some of their state laws with liquor license. That's my understanding. That's the layman's terms.
Layman's terms or layperson's terms are welcome for all of us.
Yeah. So it's very common.
I know it's very common in Ferndale. Revitalization, I think it's, our downtown has been revitalized. You've heard plenty of comments about that over the last 10 years and increasing. This particular site I'm familiar with, but what's interesting about this site, that right next door to it is Elegance, the interior design place, that certainly revitalized most of that building, all but this part of it, and didn't have to have a liquor license to do so. It has been just an amazing improvement, as well as their restoration of some of the historical elements in that building. I'm familiar with the problems of the landlords of that building, as opposed to the one where you now are allowing a cigar bar to go into, which was not a deteriorated building at all. What I'm looking for is a policy, and I appreciate that Councilman Galloway has been bringing up policies in terms of downtown, the catering trucks and such. And I know that the DDA, by checking, has over 20 of these liquor licenses available to give out. I'd like to hear some policy discussions about how many more bars we're going to have. At one point, I was told that there are only 15% of the businesses in downtown Ferndale are bars. But a question came up during that conversation, a question by someone other than me, about what about square footage? What percentage of square footage of our downtown is taken up by bars? All of you have been campaigning. All of you have talked to residents.
3 minutes, Sheriff, so I need
Okay.
you to...
Who would really like to have a downtown they could come back to, which means more than just bars?
Anyone else from the public that would like to comment during this public hearing? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up to comments, questions, discussion of council at this point.
Yeah, the property in question is Josephine, so this would be infilling a vacant restaurant with another restaurant opportunity.
Right.
Right, and the landlord has chosen to lease this as a private property from the landlord to the leasee. Okay.
That's correct.
But Sherilyn, you said there's doubt about
That is sort of what we have heard, but we have not heard directly from the applicant.
So the proper thing to do tonight would be no action taken.
I defer to our attorney on that.
Well, Your Honor, you did close the public hearing?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
I did not have, I did not see in the council packet a formal resolution from the review committee articulating the findings of fact, and given the doubt or question with respect to the question of whether the applicant wishes to proceed forward, it might make sense to table action on this to the next council meeting to determine whether or not the applicant is still interested in moving forward. The public hearing would have been the public hearing requirement would have been satisfied at that point. And
I mean, I'm not opposed to deferring, but at least in my packet, it said that the review committee has recommended approval of this license based on...
Yeah, well...
You don't, is that what you were referring to?
Well, I mean, they're really supposed to be, under the policy, findings of fact that go to some of the issues that the public has raised regarding, certain criteria. Has parking concerns been met? And so when council decides it, it can then decide it wishes to adopt those findings of fact or not, as it relates to the specific applicant and what they propose in the city.
Well, Mayor, I just might say that generally, there's a, get these packets are a little thicker. The gentleman's name, who's running the business, who's going to own it, is usually included in here. I'm not comfortable voting on this without more information on exactly. And generally, there's a menu attached and other items going to be there.
I'm not exactly sure why this came for public hearing.
I guess that is the question then, if it looks like we're...
The applicant was pushing very hard for the public hearing to be held up until about the time we scheduled it.
Well, that happened.
And we have not heard from them.
Okay.
Okay, so you were accommodating a potential business, new
Correct.
business, on meeting some deadlines, and the city responded in kind and got it on the agenda and the appropriate documentation.
Didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
So they need to get their ducks in a row.
Okay. I appreciate you
Yeah.
bending over backwards to make it happen, which you guys usually do.
So we don't need a motion to table, do we? We can just move on. and-
We'll bring
and
it
we'll
back
bring that
if
to the
and
next-
when it's appropriate.
When it's appropriate. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next order of business would be call to audience. As folks know, call to audience is 30 minutes now and more time needed at the end of the meeting to talk about any items that are not on the agenda. You get 3 minutes to say your piece about anything, again, that's not on the agenda. State your name and address and come on up. And I see my former colleague on the County Commission, Commissioner Helene Zag. Good evening.
Helene Zach, 8320 Hendry, Huntington Woods, Michigan, County Commissioner for now, District 22. I just wanted to introduce myself to council and to the audience. I'm Helene Zach. I've been County Commissioner for almost 10 years. My new district has been redrawn into Ferndale, and I look forward to working with all of you. I've been knocking doors, I've been visiting places, I love Ferndale, and I hope I have the opportunity to work with you more closely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Commissioner. Good evening.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Evan Sissel, member of the Ferndale Environmental Sustainability Commission, presenting our monthly green tip. Just a few tips on garden care and how to green your garden while protecting your soil. Instead of using traditional fertilizer, consider using earth-friendly fertilizers that are low or zero phosphorus and have a slow release of nitrogen and are free of all pesticides. Start a backyard compost bin using scraps from chopped vegetables, leftover meals, or even lawn debris. The Ferndale DPW has a free compost located at 524 East Camborne, Monday through Thursday, 7:30 to 4 p.m. Also, consider possibly installing a rain barrel on at least one of your downspouts, which not only helps divert water from going directly into sewer systems, but will also save you money on your water bill when you water your lawn or garden using the captured rainwater. Of course, native plants that have adapted to our climate here in Michigan, they ensure lower maintenance, plus the root system is often much deeper than non-native plants, therefore filtering more toxins out of the water system before they reach the sewers. For more details on all four tips, they can be found at the Southeastern Oakland County Water Authority's website, www.socwa.org, or by the following links on the FESC's webpage, facebook.com/FESC48220. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it as always. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good evening. This isn't my normal night, but Chris Hughes, Communications and Marketing Manager for the Ferndale DDA. I am here because there is so much happening in downtown Ferndale. We had to spread it out over a couple weeks. First of all, this coming weekend, we have Ferndale Pride, which is all new and reshaped. It's going to be an awesome event. It starts with some events on Thursday. Light the Night Against Hate on Friday, the Dyke March on Saturday, and Ferndale Pride and Market Day on Sunday, and that starts with the Rainbow Run. So I thought Craig would be here to promote it, but if you need more information on that, it's ferndalepride.com, and it's going to be an awesome weekend, so come on out. The following week, we have Third Thursday, and it's Pimp or Primp Your Pot, depending on where you're at with that. And it's just going to be a night of celebrating the beautiful flowers and planters that the merchants have made, and they'll be on the streets, and residents are invited to come on down, vote for their favorite, and every time you vote, you get a chance to enter to win one of our fabulously famous, beautiful hanging pots. We have one of that for one of our winners. So that's going to be a great night. There's also the Street Eats food truck rally. In addition, on June 23rd, there's the food truck and beer garden rally, and that'll be on East Troy by Woodward Avenue Brewers, and that goes on all day. So that's a little bit of a switch up from the Street Eats, because you get to have a little beer with your taco and moving hamburger, or whatever those are called. I'm not quite sure. And finally, one of the most important reasons I'm here is you've all probably been seeing it, but we've had art going up around town, and it's stimulated some interesting discussion, and we're having a good time with that, and that's what art does, and that's what art is intended to do, and we are happy to say we will have all of those in by, we'll have 11 new sculptures in town by June 28th in time for Art Town, the event. And we promise you this is going to be the social event of the year, so be sure to get your tickets. We have had amazingly generous donations from everyone. Allied Printing and the Suburban Collection help pay for for sponsoring the party. We've had sponsors of all of our sculptures around town that help pay for the pads that we've had to put in and whatever additional work that had to be done to make those things happen. But for the party, we've had 10 restaurants, 10 of our Ferndale restaurants are donating small plate treats, and they will be served at 6 different host locations. It's a complicated event, but it's going to be fun. We start and end at the Rust Belt Market. We have desserts and food and art, of all things, and the final reveal at the Rust Belt Market at 8:30 of the sculpture that will be in front of there. So we're inviting you all to come. It's a great way to, it's a benefit for public art. It's a way to support public art, and without tax dollars for the most part. It's supported by Motor City Casino Hotel, and as I said, sponsors all along the way and donated food. So get your ticket at downtownferndale.com and come to the party because it's going to be fun.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Sherry Wells.
Yes, Sherry Wells, proud member of the Ferndale Rotary. What we've been doing for Veterans Day every year is honoring at least 3 veterans, and one we honored last year was George Williams. I've had a chance to get better acquainted with him, and he loaned me a documentary of someone that he served under in World War II. And this is a lieutenant colonel who was put in charge of Nagasaki, Japan. It's a very well done documentary by the man's family, and I learned some parts, some aspects that I'm very pleased to have learned. We're showing that the public library on Tuesday, June 19th, a week from tomorrow, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for seniors and others who are more available at 2, and at 7 p.m. So there's 2 opportunities for people to come. Light refreshments. This is sponsored by the Ferndale Rotary, by Peace Action, and by the library itself. So I welcome people to come out. George Williams will be there. He was our honorary Grand Marshal for the Memorial Day Parade this year and for the past couple years, and just turned 90 in February. So this is something that I'm proud to say that the Rotary is part of. Thank you. Free.
Even better. Anyone else for call to audience this evening? If not, I'll close call to audience and we'll move on to the consent agenda. These are items that we consider routine and we enact in one motion unless anything is removed from the consent agenda. So let me go ahead and read our consent agenda this evening. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the special and regular meetings held May 29, 2012, and the special meeting held May 21, 2012. B, approval of special event permit and street closures for Ferndale Woodward Dream Cruise to be held August 16th to the 18th, 2012. C, approval to purchase 2 CAD computers as submitted by our Chief of Police. D, hardware and software inventory executed by the Ferndale Public Schools IT. E, approval to reappoint our DPW Director Byron Fatides as representative and DPW Supervisor Slocum as alternate to represent Ferndale on the Board of Trustees of the Southeast Oakland County Resource Recovery Authority for the fiscal year beginning July 1st. F, approval of the Uniform Video Service Local Franchise Agreement with Wide Open West Michigan LLC to operate a cable franchise in the city of Ferndale for a period of 10 years and authorizing me to sign it. G, approval of an amended intergovernmental agreement with participants in the Justice Assistance Grant Program for to transfer unspent grant funds and available equipment purchased with grant funds from the city of Pontiac to Oakland County, as submitted by our city clerk. H, adoption of ordinance number 1127, amending section 9 through 21, chapter 9, fire prevention and protection, article 2, fire prevention code, requiring operational permits from additional land uses of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances, as submitted by our fire chief. I, adoption of ordinance number 1128, repeal of chapter 7, article 6, business registration of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances, as also submitted by our fire chief. Going through the Code of Ordinances book there, Fire Chief, and cleaning things up. And finally, J, approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the City Manager's Office, subject to the review of the Council's Finance Committee. Council, pleasure on the consent agenda this evening.
I would move that we adopt the consent agenda in its entirety.
Support. Moved by Galloway, supported by Piana. Any discussion? Anyone from the public with any discussion on our consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Martin,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Lennon is absent, Galloway,
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted this evening. Moving on to the regular agenda, item A is the appointments of Christopher Roan, Sarah Fleming, and Karen Boldis to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I guess I'll introduce that because these are mayoral appointments subject to the approval of council. We have 2 openings on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Scott Levasseur and Tom McDonald have resigned from that board, and that had left 2 vacancies. And I am taking the recommendation of our Director of Community and Economic Development, Director Derek Delacourt, in moving Chris Roan, the current alternate member, to a regular seat, appointing Sarah Fleming to the other regular seat, and assigning Karen Boldis as an alternate to that board. What is the pleasure of council?
I move to confirm the appointments of Christopher Roan and Sarah Fleming as regular members of the Board of Zoning Appeals for terms ending December 31st, 2012, and Karen Boldis as an alternate member for a term ending December 31st, 2012.
Support.
Moved by Piana, supported by Lennon. Any comments or questions on this item?
I'm amazed at the caliber of background of the 3 applicants. I was astounded about what they're bringing to the table, and I'm really glad Chris has chose to serve as a full member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So really think we have good people.
And I would just echo that. We have some very talented people in this community, number one, but their willingness to step up and serve in these unpaid capacities just speaks a lot to our community. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Scott and Tom for their service on that board as well. We appreciate all that they did on that board as well, so appreciate that. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana,
Yes.
Lennon,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. Those appointments are adopted. Regular agenda. Item B, consideration of website redesign and development contracts with Artemis Solutions Group and Skidmore Studio, according to the pricing arrangement stipulated in the attached agreements, and authorization for the mayor to sign the contracts. City Manager, you want to introduce that item?
Staff is excited to have on the agenda the next step into redesigning our website. You have before you 2 contracts, one for the management and the other Artemis for the management of the system, as well as Skidmore for the design of the website. So I know, as you know, we had staff and city council had a direct hand in interviewing both of these companies, and these were the final selection. And again, this is the step that we take to actually start the process of redesigning our website, making it much more efficient and user-friendly so that we can have more of our residents have 24/7 to be able to participate in a city function and start getting online payments and things of that nature. So we are very, very excited. We do have Joe Gaucho here, who's going to be a lead project coordinator, if there's any further questions.
Questions of council?
I have a couple about technology, and I was wondering if you could explain why we're choosing, the DNN. I don't even know what that stands for, over another type of content management system.
Sure.
And is this proprietary?
No, this is not proprietary. This is open source. DNN stands for .NET Nuke. It is a Microsoft-supported product. Staff did canvass several CMS solutions that were presented to us by the final presentees. Staff made the recommendation based on the potential for ease of training and ease of application, both on a short-term training and a long-term training. We have to think long-term, how are we going to be training new staff onward, and the ease of use was absolutely integral. Also, yes, we were hesitant to choose a proprietary solution. The city did want to own the content and be able to transfer potentially transfer that content to another company if, in the future, if things didn't work out. So with an open source solution, we have that flexibility. And if there's any particular questions, we do have John Gilkey, president of Artemis Technologies, Inc. here, who can answer any specific questions.
I guess I wasn't clear that we were going to have a business directory in here as a feature. So can you explain that a little bit about what you envision with that?
I think generally, we hope to better define that as the project continues and we continue to collaborate with Artemis on recommendations on building that out. But basically, we're hoping to have it as an economic development tool for businesses and prospective businesses. We can list a general business resource directory, whether it be MISHDA or other types of support agencies by the state or local SEMCOG supportive agencies, the MSA. We can compile a list of these resources into a directory format that they'll have, easy navigation that will lead them to contact information, their website, their phone number, what they do, what services they provide. Basically, we're trying to give them a one-stop shop for resources.
And then my other one was about ongoing maintenance. There was an optional price in here, and I was wondering what you thought that would be for us after we launch and get through warranty on this contract, and what do you think some of those costs might be long-term for us? Because you can't just neglect that. Correct.
No. The solutions that Artemis recommends are revisited every year. So for the first year, you have the initial warranty which lasts 4 weeks, and then you have the agreement for the remainder of the year. And that really long-term maintenance needs to account for a couple things. One, hosting services, and two, a website needs to be dynamic. It needs to always be forward-thinking and forward-moving. So we don't want to get into a position where 3 years down the line our website looks the same. We want it to constantly evolve with developing technologies, developing trends in telecommunication, and developing trends in website management. So really that's what is under consideration with the long term. Also, Artemis provides training with the package that we have selected for the first year. So as new staff members come on, whether we renew year to year, we'll have that training opportunity.
May I ask, I think this is great that the ease of doing business will be much more optimal in this new web design. When do you expect we will start to see changes in our external facing website? Yeah. How soon? I know we haven't passed it yet. But.
I will say that will. It's hard to put. I don't want to put an actual time frame on it, but I would say typically, I think jobs say 6 to 9 months for a website. The most difficult time is the content migration, and that depends on the amount of staff resources available to literally migrate content from the old website to the new website, sort out what is relevant information, what is stagnant information, as well as the capacity to redevelop the entire information architecture of the new website. And that should take, I would say, 6 to 9 months, I would expect. But please don't hold me to that.
Fair enough.
We're shooting for 9.
That's our goal. Our goal is, our actual goal is to launch by New Year 2013. That's our objective.
Yeah, the proposal here says 17 to 19 weeks, but that's optimal if you have all your content written. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what you're ready to cut and paste into the new environment. It's the number one.
We are currently auditing our old website right now, so we're trying to be as proactive as possible.
Well, good luck finding anything.
Well, through the chair, if I may, I just wanted to say this is a long-awaited contract. Kate Baker ran on fixing the website for her campaign when she was elected 5 years ago. So it's taken a long time to get here for a variety of reasons that I won't go into. But I really think we're ready to put our best foot forward and our most valuable marketing tool, which is our website. And I think we've paired together two important pieces, the branding component and this new infrastructure. So I'm really excited. I can wait 6 more months to get what we've been looking for. We've been waiting 5, 6 years.
Forget that I said 6 months.
Yeah. But the fact that we've already started, this is like, yay, finally. But it's part of our restructuring process too, right? This is about helping us restructure our internal operations so that we can, I don't know, what's the right word? Make it 21st century and making sure that we're making connections with our internal systems with our tools, so online bill pay.
I would say, as a quick note, I think this is the first step in staff and the city coming together and helping the city of Ferndale evolve as a leader as a digital community.
I share that vision.
Well, I just want to say that, I've heard some rumblings out there about us spending the money, and I'm sure you have too, Mayor, you mentioned that to me. However, until Joe and April came on board, we were basically running a boiler room operation with our IT departments and our website. It was just pathetic. It's been like that for a while. So part of me didn't want to vote for this, but you have my support, and good luck with our current one.
Thank you.
And I guess I would just echo that too, because it's sometimes easy to think, well, you're just making a new pretty website and, it's just for the looks. But trust me, this is from the back end to the front end, a complete redesign, which ultimately is for the purpose of making it easier for our residents to interact with the city. We've had to close City Hall on Fridays. We know that our hours are limited. We want to make it as easy and accessible for our residents, for businesses, for potential businesses to find out information about Ferndale. And so long-term, this is a key tool, which is why we've taken the time to do it right, but which is why we're doing it at all. And so it isn't just a pretty web page, for sure.
Well, I might add that I have been told that this could pay for an employee for a year, at one of the various departments. And you know what? It might eventually. It might eventually. By spending $30,000 right now, that might free up an employee down the road.
Additional comments or thoughts of council? If not, Madam Clerk, could you call? Oh, we didn't have it. Did we have a motion? I went right past that, didn't I? I need a motion on this.
I would move that we adopt the proposed resolution contained in the agenda number 8B memo from Joe.
Support. Is there support?
Second.
Moved by Galloway, supported by Martin. All right, last additional comments or questions? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Good luck, Joe. Item C is a consideration of an AFSCME Local 998 contract. And April, is that you or is that Jennifer?
If you have any further, I can just do a summary. If you have any questions, I'll have Jennifer come up. But again, I want to say congratulations to Jennifer and to AFSCME Local 998, our clerical unit, who again worked together. I think we had 3 or 4 meetings. They did an outstanding job in ratifying this contract. Again, 0% wages, and we're starting our new trend. All new hires are coming in paying 20% of health care. So that's just a few of the items. But again, another 0 for the next, I believe this is a 2-year contract. So we can't thank the unions enough for sitting down with staff, and as well as Jenny's doing an awesome job in her new role as the HR manager. And this is a product of that pairing. So again, we're very fortunate, and I think this is it. We have no more open contracts this year. So, yep.
Beautiful.
That is a key point. No more open contracts. We've now settled them.
Oh, wait, one more.
Oh, I'm seeing one more.
Oh, sorry, the garage, but we're working toward that one, so.
But you've heard the same thing that you've heard from the other contracts, and I can't thank the employees enough. 0% increase, concessions on benefits. Our employees understand the challenges that the city has. They've stepped to the plate and made sacrifices, and can't thank them enough. Is there a motion?
I move to authorize the attached changes to the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Ferndale and AFSCME Local 998 for the period July 1, 2012 to June 30th, 2014, and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement.
Support.
Moved by Lennon, supported by Galloway. Comments, questions of council? Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana? Yes. Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Finally, regular agenda item D, consideration of a resolution opposing the sale and use of synthetic marijuana in the city of Ferndale and asking the Michigan legislature to ban its sale and possession statewide. You know, I see the police chief. I'm going to ask you to come stroll on up, and while April briefly introduces this item, you could perhaps address some of the great work that you and your force have done over the last week or two.
I'm going to do a brief, over the last week, actually, it's been a while, but the last week it's been, the newspapers have just been all over with the K2 spice and things of that nature, and that Monday morning I had prepared to talk to the chief about what are we going to do, and the next thing I know, within a few seconds, he had already been working on some ideas, as well as I know that Dan Chris will want to talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to let the chief talk about what stance that we're taking, and then move into Mr. Chris talking about the next steps in trying to ban the substance in our community.
Thank you, Your Honor. We actually wanted to be proactive on this. This was a collaborative effort from myself and several people of our staff. Came up with the letter idea and came up with the idea of putting the placards at all the stores that potentially could sell this type of material. We were very happy, though, and I want to make sure that the citizens know, is that the business community in this town had already, for the most part, abandoned this. Many of them never even sold it in the first place. So I just don't want it to look out like we went there and asked them to remove it, and they removed it for us. There's really only one establishment that was. There was a couple of establishments that had in the past, but every other one hadn't even considered doing it. So the community here really took care of itself. We got a lot of good press, a lot of good slaps on the back, but the reality of the situation is that the community had done it itself. Now, on the other hand, what we need from the state legislature, I believe, I mean, passing a local ordinance will be somewhat helpful, but really this is a state issue that has to be handled, in my opinion, at the state level. I believe we're working towards that end. I do know that it's a slippery item because of the chemical makeup of the substance that's being put on here. The Patch did an outstanding story, if you read that, about what spice and synthetic marijuana is and how to identify it, how to identify your child if they're using it, and things of that nature. It was a very good article, helpful for anybody that suspects somebody else is using it. So I really want to give a lot of a hand and a nod to everybody in the business community that was here.
Appreciate it. So, Dan, you've got some suggestions on moving forward.
Well, the resolution, as Council and Mayor, as you know, and as you've read, this is the first step with respect to taking a proactive approach, and it simply affirms that the Council is against this particular product. The state last week, the House did pass a bill, but the Senate has not taken it up. They may take it up this week, but it hasn't. And there is a public health concern with respect to this. In the interim, as the Chief indicated, it doesn't appear to be in Ferndale's community at this point. So this resolution simply would put Council on record as being opposed to it and direct that the legislature take it up promptly to prohibit this particular substance, and also encourage the chief to continue to monitor it in the community and report back to Council with respect to, and to the administration with respect to any type of change that the department sees relative to that. And also, some communities are, in the absence of action by the federal government or state government, taking action in that void. And so it would direct that I study that issue and make a recommendation on that issue, probably for your next meeting. That's what the resolution would set forth this evening.
So we need a motion first if we're going to take this item up.
I would move that we adopt the resolution opposing the availability and use of synthetic marijuana and requesting the state to ban its sale and possession.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Galloway. Now, questions, comments of Council on this item?
I don't have a question. I'd like to make a comment. I just want to thank the chief and his staff last week for really jumping on this and doing a ton of work, reaching out to businesses to make sure that we didn't have this in our city. So I really appreciate all the effort that you guys put out last week.
Other comments?
Dan said it.
Dan said it all, yeah.
Amen. And I echo what the chief said about our business owners. They voluntarily kept this off their shelves. And I would only add that I think I said to one reporter that our stores in Ferndale are free of this substance, but it doesn't mean our city is. Parents, if you have teenagers, especially because teens seem to be the primary users of this, although that's probably growing as well, be on the lookout for this stuff. It's legal, so they can find it in other cities and in other stores. So our stores are free of it. Let's make our community free of it. Parents, keep an eye on your kids and the packets that look innocent enough in their rooms could be this stuff, so be on the lookout. Thanks. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Our next item would be call to council. Chief Collins, now that you've gone all the way back there again, anything else for the good of the community this evening? All right, thank you. Fire Chief Sullivan, anything for the good of the city this evening?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right. Jennifer, anything from HR tonight? Oh, very good. Joe, anything further to add to this evening?
Yes, Your Honor, the city just launched its fourth...
Right, want to just step up to the mic so the folks at home can hear you? Yeah.
The city just launched its fourth component to our social media campaign. We just launched a Pinterest website. I am happy to say we are one of the first local government communities to actually take on this endeavor. We're hoping that this will give us another tool to promote citizen interaction and advocacy for all city events, city departments, city actions. There really is no limit on what we can do with this. It really gives us another tool for creativity and citizen engagement. So check us out on Pinterest. Also check us out on Facebook.
And like us on Facebook. Our Facebook continues to grow, but we're still under 1,000, and with 20,000 people in our community, I think there's a lot more folks that need to go onto Facebook and simply like the City of Ferndale page, and that way you'll be sure to get all the latest information about our city. Sherilyn.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
All right. City Manager April McGrath.
I have a couple reminders. A reminder, if you, the Art Town project, or the event on Thursday, June 28th from 6 to 10 p.m., so make sure that if you're interested, you let me know. I'll make sure to RSVP. And then a couple of other things. Let me pull it up really quick here. That summer is on its way, and we are making sure that our employees are hydrated and are staying cool as the warm weather comes in effect. So I know that Jenny will be working to make sure that everybody is following the rules of paying attention to your body as the heat comes. So I know that kind of came up last year during the heat, so we're working through that. As well as just a friendly reminder, I will be out starting Wednesday, and we'll be back on June 25th.
Why are you going to be out, April?
I am getting married.
Oh, is that right?
I'm going to take a little break. How about that? But I will come back.
Well earned, well earned. Thank you, April. Anything else, Dan, from the attorney perspective?
Very briefly, I did have a discussion with Michael Larry, Special Events Coordinator for the city. He was concerned as it relates to Dream Cruise and possible sales happening on private property. I told him I would review that issue with him, and I need to talk to the police chief and fire chief as it relates to that. Should have a recommendation on that subject for council at its next meeting. And I would like to congratulate April, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Dan. Councilman Martin.
No, the only thing this past weekend was beautiful, and it was Garage Sale Central. And particularly want to congratulate Fern Care that had a successful garage sale up the road, and thank our seniors for, with the library and other assistants, putting on the Trunk and Treasure sale here between Library and City Hall. It was well attended and very successful. It was nice to see everybody out.
Thanks. Councilman Lang.
Yesterday, we had Family Fun Day, what we call it. We've been doing it for several years over at Lennon Park. And, we have moonwalks and face painting for the neighborhood kids, et cetera, a bunch of games and activities. We also handed out 4 scholarships to graduating seniors there. And you get this money every year, too. actually 8, so. But I want to say thank you to Chief Sullivan for providing the men and the fire truck for the kids. Sean Slocum and his crew for bringing extra picnic tables and garbage cans. Spencer Meyer from the owner of Dairy Queen, for bringing all the ice cream for the young ones, some old ones too. And several other people, but many thank yous, and it was well worth it, but it was a hot one.
Yeah.
That's all I have right now.
Awesome, great. All right, well, I'm going to go to Councilman Galloway.
Nothing from me this evening. Yeah, of course.
Councilwoman Piana.
Yeah, I wanted to give an update about the alternative analysis and where we are with that grant. This month, we were supposed to sign the contract to kick off the 15-month public engagement process, but if you've been watching the news about M1 Rail, you know that their timeline has been extended a little bit, and so that's somewhat impacting the start of our project, but I think that will get going in June, and everybody will be receiving a ton of information about what that means. So I just want to let you know that it's in the hands of SEMCOG and Parsons Bricknoff. They are our consulting firm, engineering firm, who is managing all the engineering details, and SEMCOG is sort of like the lead agency on moving our grant forward. So, and then I wanted to say congratulations to April on your upcoming nuptials, and the City Council has a small gift for you and Ryan. So, without disclosing where you're going on your little mini honeymoon, council has bought a little welcome package for you and Ryan when you arrive at your undisclosed location.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, have a great time.
Thank you.
And don't think about us.
Okay.
Things will be handled well without you for 3 days. We
I
can
have
manage.
ordered no catastrophes.
No
for the next
catastrophes,
week.
power
Good to go.
outages, or anything else.
Thank you.
And I would just echo that. Much congratulations to you. Nothing else to add this evening. And so that concludes our council meeting. However, there is a necessity to go into closed session if there is a motion to do so.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Lennon, supported by Galloway, to go into closed session for the purpose of considering the purchase or lease of real property, which we can't disclose in public session. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Council members Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yep.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The former meeting is adjourned, and we are now in closed session.